I will now be discussing the industry analysis of Sprint. The cell phone industry is one of the fastest growths besides the internet. Cell phones have gone through a huge change and its market has expanded globally. Since 1994, the cell phone industry has increased from 24 million to about 182 million in the wireless phone and related devices operating in the United States, with some 162 million mobile phone users in the United States alone. The cell phone market is increasing very fast with today's ever-emerging technology and innovations and improving cell phones. Today's society is living with advanced technology and everyone wants to keep pace with the new technologies. Cell phone industry is growing larger because it has become a necessity. Parents are getting mobile phones for their teens because they want to communicate in case of an emergency, and the wireless carriers have made it easy to add users to existing plans. And carriers are becoming more successful in getting parents to expand their plans to include their teenagers. This increased buyers and increasing market share worldwide. The cell phone industry has become increasingly larger within the last 3 years as a result of more affordable cellular phones as well as lower cost services. Companies are competing in an advanced technology and communication sector in which success attracts customers to buy their products and services. The market is very competitive because they offer the same products and services but have different physical attributes to phones and different costs, which buyers have a choice to choose from. Companies want to prove the best products and services and attract buyers by lowering costs and improving products, which makes the cell phone industry very competitive. The cell phone industry is in the mature stage of its life cycle where nearly all potential customers are already using the products in the industry. The cell phone industry's growth and profitability depends entirely on its ability to attract new customers. By increasing and improving cell phones and services, it will attract more potential buyers because technology alone will not attract buyers. Instead, companies want value-added services for mobile phone security. The cell phone industry. There are 4 major operators in the United States that offer national wireless services. 2 of these, AT&T and T-Mobile, provide services using GSM standards, while the other 2, Verizon and Sprint, primarily use CDMA. All 4 operate networks using LTE standards for the 4G services. AT&T Mobile, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, a subsidiary of AT&T Inc., offers 2G services using GSM, 3G services using WCDMA, and 4G services using HPSA Plus and LTE technology. T-Mobile US, headquartered in Washington, is a subsidiary of German telecommunication company T-Mobile International AG. T-Mobile offers 2G services using GSM, 3G services using WCDMA, and 4G services using HSPA Plus and LTE technologies. Verizon Wireless, headquartered in New Jersey, is a subsidiary of Verizon Communications that offers 2G services using CDMA1, 3G services using CDMA 2000, and 4G services using LTE technology. Sprint Corporation, headquartered in Overland Park, Kansas, is a majority owned by Japanese telecommunication company SoftBank Corporation. Sprint offers 2G services using CDMA1, 3G services using CDMA 2000, and 4G services using LTE technology. I will now be discussing the industry's key economic indicators as it applies to Sprint. Network coverage is critical for access to the mobile internet. At the end of 2014, mobile operators reached approximately 85% of the global population with 2G and around 55% with higher speed mobile broadband 3G networks. Despite the progress to date, there are significant populations around the world who still do not have access to the mobile services. A large proportion of these still unconnected populations live in rural and sometimes geographically remote areas. This indicates that the infrastructure of the world's region may be a great indicator of total market growth. This can be seen as the only way to expand due to the saturated market in the United States and over the highly developed nations. A key economic indicator of the telecommunications industry is having the pace of technology advancement keeping up with customers' needs and requirements. The average person in the world is becoming more and more dependent and addicted to instant information at the palm of their hand. The broadband capabilities must keep up with these needs of masses in order to fully satisfy customers. I will now be discussing the Porter analysis, which is made up of the rivals, threat of substitutes, threat of new entrants, threat of suppliers, threat of buyers. Porter's 5-force analysis is a framework that attempts to analyze the level of competition within an industry and business strategy development. It draws upon industries, organizations, and economics to derive 5 forces that determine the competitiveness, intensity, and therefore attractiveness of an industry. I will now be discussing the rivals. Within the telecommunications industry, Verizon and AT&T are the two major rivals against Sprint. All players here tend to compete with a set amount of customers and fight for market share. Sprint's survival will depend on their ability to market usefulness and their latest technological leap. Competition within the industry consists of a great number of different characteristics, including pricing, packaging deals, reliability, data services, and bandwidth. In terms of packaging deals, family plans are a particular strength to Sprint's business and form a strategy to their promotional branding. Beyond simple pricing is the reliability of different networks. Although this is largely based on the different technologies involved, the end user is still sensitive. The key to Sprint's position is their control over their 2.5 GHz frequency. This unique ability allows them to sell devices and others in the telecommunication that the other telecommunication industry cannot. The problem is that Sprint does not actually sell these products. It's partnered with LG, Samsung, and Nokia, which sell them. But since no other telecom company can offer such capabilities, Sprint has the ability to capture rent from these other companies. In this industry, the internal rivalry is intense and dynamic. Every company has their own strategy for increasing demand for their products, which can increase market share or increase the total market. The demand for these products is highly variable, and the entire extent of the market has yet to be determined. The major players are Sony, Apple, and companies allied with Sprint such as Nokia, LG, and Samsung. I will now be discussing the threat of substitutes. The substitutes of electronic devices are obviously a much stranger situation and provide a strong force against Sprint. Since their success rides on the success of wireless broadband cell phones, these devices must prove to be the most efficient or at least popular method of providing information, entertainment, and organization of customers. Sprint calls this revolution the third screen, as it is the next stage of content delivery after the television, home computer, and the competition includes everything from the iPod to the Sony PSP, even to the BlackBerry. Threats of substitutes are not likely to be for cell phones, but more likely for Wi-Fi enabled products. iPods, iPads, tablets, etc. are all potential substitutes for phones because with the use of Wi-Fi, people can use those products for email, social media, and even more ways to communicate. There are apps that will allow users to call and video chat, but will not allow them to do so without internet connection. Possible cross-platform messaging services include Telegram, Skype, BBM, Line, Ring, Viber, WhatsApp, and AIM. Threat of new entrants. Entry into the telecommunication network is extremely limited due to the massive amount of fixed costs and the credible threats of Verizon. The industry requires a tremendous amount of capital that established corporations already have. New entrants would find it difficult to raise capital and compete with the established corporations. Another problem with new entrants is that they face getting licensing, which is costly and also be very lengthy. The threat of new entrants is a possibility that Sprint corporations must consider, but not as a major factor. The threat of suppliers. Supplier power is not likely to be a strong force against anyone in either market. Most businesses, telecommunication as well as other device manufacturers, build their products from manufacturers that are easily interchangeable. The evidence is that many, but not all, of electronic companies such as Sony and Samsung produce their own parts for others to buy. For over 20 years, Sprint has always outsourced 100% of its devices manufactured to a number of suppliers. The difference between the past and now is that Sprint's device lifestyle quality processes, which was developed from and maintained its partnership with OEM suppliers. This shows that the power lies within Sprint rather than the suppliers due to the quantity of suppliers and the size of the Sprint corporation. I will now be discussing the threat of buyers. The buyers individually hold little power over Sprint, but as a whole have a significant power over the ability of the firm to change prices and create barriers for switching. This is due to the end customer, which is in most cases the end user of the telecommunication services. Buyer power is the most difficult force to assess and the most important. With a simple cell phone, users' switching costs are fairly low, and the buyer power showed low brand loyalty. These companies all try to maintain customers throughout complicated plans that reward loyalty, but it has yet proven successful at similar programs like airline miles. Sprint has the power over the companies that sell these phones to go with the plans due to their much-mentioned bandwidth monopoly. They can extract profits in regard since any electronic company can make the technology for wireless broadband, but only the ones with Sprint's licensing can use it. The question is how much of this will affect the customer loyalty, which has yet to be seen. Now going over a summary of Sprint's Porter analysis, looking at the threats and rivals is very high. Verizon and AT&T are at the top of the most powerful looking to grab additional market share. The threats of substitutes is medium to high. Apps like WhatsApp are the threat due to the possibility of voting networks, but also having a quality issues without working. Threat of new entrants and threat of suppliers is very low. This is low because the new entrants such as Google, which may possibly happen, with the strategy of using the network of Sprint and T-Mobile may actually be more of an opportunity for Sprint. However, the threat of buyers is high. Market concentration and customers have the power over price and switching opportunities.